Hi, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our public board meeting. Warm welcome to our board and our team and anybody who's joining us online. It's great to have you with us today. I'll start off with apologies. We've got apologies today from Tiffany Lamb and from Susan Stockwell, who are both unwell, but I think otherwise we've got a complete complement of board and senior team. So quite a lot of business today. In a moment, we'll be coming back into our actions and matters arising from our last public board meeting. We'll then have regular updates from me, from Michael, and then we've got a substantive set of decisions to make as a board this morning around our business plan for 2026-27, where we've got proposals building on some of the discussions that we've had as a board running up to now. We then have our regular reports from our heads of section, campaigns, comms and casework. And hopefully all of that will be done by about, and finance, and all that we've done by about 12 o'clock. So before we launch into all of that, has anybody else got any issues that they want to add to that agenda during our public session? Nope. In which case, let's move straight on to the minutes and actions. Can I just check in that everybody was happy with the minutes from our last public board meeting, which was the one on the 17th of September? Thank you very much. And then the actions, which are on page 3 of our pack. We'll run through these relatively quickly. The joint board with Transport Focus I'll pick up in my chair's update. External speakers always welcome. Susan, the third action on the acknowledgement proposal. Can you update us on, is that made any progress since we last sat down?
No, I mean, Transport Focus have mentioned that they have thought about different methods of passenger contact through, because they know that Foundever, who are the initial contact provider, they have loads of other contracts and they do those in different ways. That's what they've said in a kind of abstract way. Yeah. But there's been no follow-up for it. I did mention, I think at the last PCG, Tricia, you were there, I did mention that to remind them, remember, I had suggested that we change this and they agreed that they remembered, but
do we need to escalate this? Because I think I was just reminding myself that we first discussed this proposal in January. So it'll be having its first birthday sometime fairly soon, which is, I'm not inclined to have a party. So do we, is there anything that we could do to help get a decision one way or another?
I really don't know. I mean, I know that they're playing catch up. So a lot of their information that's on their website is years and years out of date. They've got to do that first. They're doing some more kind of we have no roles and responsibilities document that provide me and my team what their expectations are. So I know that's an area. They're doing a lot around the PSA as well. I just don't think it's a particular priority for them at the moment.
Okay, well, let's pick this offline, but I'd quite like to either do it or not do it. Because at the minute it's just as a bit of a running act. So let's see what we can do to push it along one way or another. Michael, the next action is around involving Transport for All in the trust building ambition.
Yes, and having, as I did, I think at the last board meeting, Matters Arising said that we'd approached Transport for All and they'd said they were up in principle for it. The latest update says that we reconsider once the business plan has been published in December. And the reason for that is that it was pretty clear, I think, from the discussion that you and I had with Alex Williams about the business planning process, there wasn't going to be an obvious kind of point of entry for us to shape their thinking, either solo or with the involvement of, for example, Transport for All. So rather than trying the impossible and trying to kind of engage in the detail of the building trust aspect of the business plan, we have made our points previously about aspiration. Let's see what comes out in the plan, which is due out in December, and take it from there.
So I think we should close this as an action because it sounds like it's moving into business as usual. Okay. All right. Well, let's close that as an action, Kath. Thank you. And then while I've got you, Michael, the large customer offer, is that that also slightly feels like it's run out of steam as an action?
It's on hold, and
Yeah.
that's primarily because we're so busy we haven't been able to action it.
Yeah.
The specific piece of work was to sort of branch out from what we have done on Euston, and look at kind of a similar kind of critique of other major stations. Now that we still want to do that because it feels like a good thing to do, and we still want to initiate it this year. We have talked about it kind of following into next year's business plan, which we'll come on to later in the agenda. So I don't know how you want to record it in the matters arising, but it's still something that I think is worth doing, even if it's been delayed.
So do you find it helpful just to have it as a nudge on our in our matter? So let's just keep it. Let's keep it as an ongoing action, not close it for now. Thank you. Alex, your action on the QA regime for bus driver training on disability is complete. So thank you very much for sharing that with board members. Yes, of course, Eddie. Yeah.
Is there confirmation of who the new external guide of the bus training evaluation is?
I don't have that. I can give that.
Thank you. Alex, if you can confirm that offline, that will be excellent. And then Susan, the case working report summary, I think we'll come on to that when we have your, we've got that, we'll come on to that when we have your report. So I think we can, I could probably close that as an action subject to what we talk about under your item. Michael, update on the terms and conditions?
Yes, the latest draft, which is of the terms and conditions, which is being prepared for us by an external resource, a solicitor. The latest draft dropped into my inbox on Monday. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I think, subject to having a quick look, we should be pretty much at the point where I can start a meaningful conversation with Eddie, as we previously anticipated. And then the idea would be, once Eddie's had a chance to kind of look and understand what we're trying to do, we'd share that with the board. For anyone who's interested in commenting on it, but the key thing is to move as soon as we can reasonably to going to consult with all of the team on the new terms and conditions.
Thank you. Then we've just got a few over the page. The equity in motion question, I think, is still outstanding. We're still waiting for a response on IDAG, or yes.
We did get a response actually after the papers went out.
Great.
And I dropped a line to
of course you did, yeah.
With the update on that.
That's right. So we can close that one.
Yeah.
The task and finish group, Kath, I think if we could just clarify that this is around strategy. This is a task and finish group on organizational strategy. That would be helpful, but that's still sitting in my to-do list. The meeting with Commissioner will be picking up separately. Alex, then the last two were for you.
Yep. So the one around information on TfL's survey, I'll send the information which they're looking into the response here. And then also, yes, the second one ongoing, got some potential options. But
thank you very much. Any more points or questions on any of those actions? Thank you very much for the ones being closed. Right, so that takes us on to the chair update. And I'm going to be relatively brief because quite a lot of the things that I would have covered are actually covered very nicely in Michael's update. But I do have a few things that I'd like to share with you. I think the first and the most significant really is since we last met in public, we've had confirmation of the extension of the appointment of 3 board members. So it's great to have Priya, Susan and Tiffany with us for some more time. So congratulations on those. And you've had your reappointment letters now from the chair of the Assembly Transport Committee, which is excellent news. Mm-hmm. Michael's report mentions the fact that I'm representing London TravelWatch at a new mayoral task force on violence against women and girls and hate crime, which is going to run for a year and has had its first meeting. Michael's report gives a good kind of account of the scope of that group. It's a large group. It's got a very wide range of public sector, third sector organisations on it. And as with any large group, it's quite difficult to really drive what it should be doing. But I would say on the back of the first meeting, first, I think that London TravelWatch's leadership on this set of issues is very widely recognised. So we were definitely turned to as being an authoritative voice on the back of our work on personal security and of our Out in London report, which was kind of really excellent. And I think second, when we come to the business plan, I'm very clear that the way for us to have the most impact in the next reporting year on this set of issues is to use this group as the frame for getting stuff done, because I think there are so many organizations, this is such a crowded field. There are so many organizations out there who are wanting to be active on personal security issues that we will be able to achieve so much more if we're able to ally with others. And this group gives us a really good framework for doing that. So I think that's a great opportunity for us. On other board pieces, we've now got confirmation of the overall approach for our 16th of December board to board with Transport Focus. It's been too long, really, since we last had a board to board with Transport Focus. And Priya, you were the only person who was around for the last one. So it's going to be 12 till 3 on the 16th of December. We're really pleased that Simon Calder is going to join us for the last hour to give us a bit of to help facilitate a bit of a provocative discussion about the customer experience of using transport. We've also got time we're going to have lunch with Transport Focus, then we're going to have a short business session as well. So I hope all of you will be able to make that, and we'll share a more detailed agenda a little bit nearer the time. And then I think the very last thing I was going to say was just I said I would give you a bit of a report on what Transport Focus is up to. So Transport Focus in October went to Brighton, and we were hosted by Brighton and Hove buses, which those of you who are more kind of transport nerds will realise have a long track record as being one of the higher performing bus companies, especially in relation to accessibility. And I think visiting Brighton and seeing the way in which Brighton and Hove are really quite inspiring in how they design accessibility and engagement into their bus services really sent me back to London with a spring in my step and a desire to be really challenging to TfL, because I think there are ways in which Brighton and Hove run their service which could be done so much better elsewhere. So that was a good use of a day with Transport Focus. I think everything else is in Michael's report, but I will pause and see whether anyone's got any questions on any of that. Nope, all good. Thank you very much. All right, Michael, straight on to you then.
Thank you. So paper with an update of my main activities since we last met back in September, as well as a one-page outline of the status of work against the main business plan themes. A few things for me to pick out, and happy to try and answer any questions that members may have. First thing that's worth noting, I think, is referred to on page 2, progress around, in particular, business plan for the greater TfL ambition in building trust, and the fact that a medium-term target, a 2030 target, has now been put into the public domain by TfL in terms of its aspiration to achieve a target score from its customer care survey. As far as I'm aware, that's the first time that target has been put into the public domain, and it was something that we have been seeking to secure. I mean, in a sense, the target and the specific number, whilst it's important, is less important than the conversation and the engagement that we have with TfL around what sits behind the target. So it is the level of ambition, the right level of ambition. What's the strategy behind delivering that target? Is there substance behind a TfL's ambition to achieve that over time? But it was worth recording as a bit of progress against something that we have tried to secure. The next meeting that we have with the lead director at TfL with responsibility for this area is in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. So we will have a chance to try and just explore a little bit further what lies behind the reference to that target, and we may or may not see something in the business plan specifically referring to this once it's published next month. But yeah, I thought it was worth marking the fact that there seems to be a little bit of progress in that regard, which is helpful.
I think we should do a bit of a shout out to Susan, who's not here, who I think was really helpful in some of the conversations that we had to encourage TfL to contract with the public. I think in this way. So
I mean, just as a footnote, an observation from my part, which is that the aspirational target, basically that 2/3 of Londoners should agree with the proposition, does TfL care for its customers? That number is higher than the current, what has always been expressed as an annual target. In reality, they are getting quite close already to hitting that sort of number in the survey score. So it sort of begs the question, well, does 66% feel ambitious enough for 5 years' time from now, if they're already starting to get close to it in the way that they measure this? But that's the kind of conversation that we want to continue having with them. And as I said, not just the number, because you can get hung up on the number. Is actually what's the substance that's behind what they're trying to do constantly to increase the degree to which people express a view that they think they can trust TfL, that they think that TfL cares about them.
Priya.
Yeah, on that, that's great to hear that, they've put it out in the public domain, so it's like a little more of a commitment, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in terms of ambition, I think we've discussed this a little bit before. This means that 1 out of 3 wouldn't be saying that TfL cares. Shouldn't it be more like 1 out of 10, given public transport is so critical to everyone's life?
Yeah, when you flip it around like that, it doesn't feel quite so ambitious. And that's precisely the essence of the conversation we want to have with them, without ending up with perverse consequences. They're simply chasing a number for the sake of it.
Kind of being a bit more ambitious, like you said, that 66% they're almost hitting. So in 5 years' time doesn't feel good enough. You know, a bit of a stretching target for yourself to aspire.
To give some credit back to TfL, I mean, what they say to us is that in kind of setting this sort of aspiration, they look over to other metro transport providers across the world, and they feel that they do pretty well at the moment. I don't think we've had a chance to kind of really get under the surface of that. They would assert that in this country, the NHS is a sort of public sector organisation which hits survey score. They ask different questions, but it's in the sort of same ballpark. So they feel that they are kind of aspiring to something which is, broadly appropriate. But it's something we constantly need to press, because as you say, when you turn it the other way around, it doesn't look so great.
It's a really good way of putting the challenge, and I think it's something for us to reflect on when we next see the commissioner. And it also, I'm also keen that we don't get too hung up on the headline number, and we bring to the table the conversations that we've had of a board about persona-based approaches and thinking, what individual experiences are hiding underneath this very average number. Who is getting the best experience? Who's getting the worst experience? And do TfL really understand what the drivers of change for those groups are, as opposed to just at sector level? So yeah, definitely, I think a big one for our work with TfL and with the commissioner personally as well. Thank you. Michael.
In the interest of time, just two other areas covered in the paper to touch on. The first is that there's been a flurry of correspondence between the Assembly and the Transport Commissioner on 3 different topics. One is on the mayoral budget for next year, one is on fare evasion, one is on bus safety, and all 3, I was going to say name check. I mean, in some cases, heavily reference input that we have made to, respectively, the Budget Performance Committee on the one hand and the Transport Committee on the other. The responses back from the, broadly speaking, from the Transport Commissioner on 2 of those themes, fare evasion and on bus safety, I think have been helpful, but don't entirely answer some of the challenges that we were encouraging the Assembly members to raise. So I just that we can certainly hover over those if members want to do so today. I think it's just to mark the fact that there've been some milestones in what is always an ongoing engagement with TfL on some of these issues. But again, small bits of progress and a sign of some of the impact that we have through our work with the assembly.
Yeah, and I think that's very much what we were trying to do when we built our business plan for this year, of getting them being supportive and in the assembly and conducting its own business as well as doing our own independent work as well. So that feels good.
Well, we are two small,
Yeah.
modestly sized, resource constrained sets of organisations, but we both play complementary parts in holding TfL and other providers to account. So the more that we can amplify each other's work, the more likely we are to have some impact.
Definitely.
Pretty simple theory. The final thing I wanted to mention was the staff away day, which took place last week. I didn't intend to go through the staff survey in detail, but members have the document to hand. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the flavour of the outcome from the away day. It was a mix of fun in inverted commas, to the extent that the away days can be fun. But
you can take the inverted commas off, Michael. It was actual fun. Yeah.
we did a treasure hunt around the highlights of Shoreditch, which is where we had our away day, which was genuinely fun, and learned a lot of things about Shoreditch, a part of our patch, obviously, that I didn't know before. And then we spent 2 or 3 hours talking about the staff survey score, but anything else that colleagues wanted to raise. I won't go through all of them, but there was a mix of the kind of operational. So how do we make best use of our office space, for example? Quote of the day, which I don't think has been trademarked. It can't be trademarked, but there was a call for London TravelWatch to be more dog than watch. In the way that we carry out our watch, which I thought was.
There's a T-shirt coming your way.
Which I thought was diamond. An absolutely great quote. I mean, in simple terms, we should get out there more often. For example, through our social media activity, highlighting, for example, every time we put out a significant response to a consultation, saying what it is that we are potentially unhappy about and which we want to see change. So there was a plea from the team for us to do that, which I thought was a good shout out. Just very briefly on the staff survey, because we did spend a reasonable amount of time on that. There were three questions in the staff survey where the results were ones where a material number of people did not agree with what was a positive statement, and we were keen to make sure that in particular we prioritised addressing those issues. So very briefly, one was around awareness of the Employment Assistance Programme, which in fact we had already in large part addressed in the interim since the staff survey had been carried out. There was one of the responses was around the quality quantum of training and development for people, and we've undertaken to bring in some extra HR support to do a kind of proper review of people's skills and competencies against the job descriptions, and on the back of that to have a kind of more structured approach to identifying where there's training that we can fund for the team. So we will do that probably in the new year. And then the final aspect of the survey that we focused on as an area of concern to be addressed was with regard to the comfort with which people felt they could challenge issues around ED&I. And as it happens, we were already in the process of organising a facilitated session, which will probably now be in the new year, with an organisation we've used before, to help us work through some of the issues around dealing with challenging conversations, particularly, but not just, but particularly around race. So we are trying to kind of respond quickly to some of the things, and materially to some of the things that were flagged up of most concern.
Sonia, I don't want to leap on you, but you did a lovely job at the away day of facilitating the discussion on the staff survey, and some of what Michael's talked about is inputs to the business plan process. It will come back to moment. Was there anything you wanted to add by way of reflection?
I think just picking up on a couple of the things Michael's mentioned around consultations, I thought that was really valid. And a few of us are meeting next week to discuss that and how we can do a bit more comms around consultations, which I think is a no-brainer once it's been discussed. You think, why aren't we already doing that? So that's definitely going to happen. So that's really good. I was going to mention it later, but around the kind of employee assistance program, it was a little bit more around internal comms generally, and how we are kind of keeping people in the team up to date with what's going on. So I'm looking at setting up an intranet, which will hopefully launch in the new year. So that's quite a nice positive thing that came out of those discussions as well. Yeah, it was a good day. And just to say, we did ask staff for feedback, and the responses we've had have all been really positive.
Great,
which is good.
That's always nice.
You never know.
Yeah, yeah. And without picking champions, but kudos to Team Alex for actually doing a lot better in the treasure hunt than any of the teams. So yeah, thank you. So yes, Lara.
So really interesting to hear about the away day and the results. And it's always great to have so much information, particularly for a small organisation. Often they don't kind of go into that level of depth. So I think it's really positive. I just had a question about the aspect that you've highlighted around undertaking training, which helps me to do my job. And obviously you talked about that piece of work with HR to compare it to their job descriptions. But I also think potentially there might be another element to that, which is not just what's in your job at the moment. There's something about us looking to the future and to what are the skills and resources that our staff might need in the future, not just what they need to do their job right now. And I don't know necessarily what's the best way to think about what that kind of training in is. I mean, I know AI is a hot topic at the moment. In some of my other organisations, we've been having training just even on what it is, how you use it, how you don't use it. To take that as an example, obviously there'll be areas which are specific to our organisation, but I think it'd be good to have a think about what might we need to know more about in the future and how we can help our staff to understand that better.
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
We've got somebody who's delivered good, accessible training on what AI is and how to use it. With that, in fact, then I think we would probably be up for help. Really quite a good business area, right? Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's not just the tasks now; it's also the tasks in the future. Really, really good point. Any other points for Michael?
Just one point, Michael. Really, it's really reassuring that these so many references to your own book in the written correspondence from the transport committee follow-ups, and it's real evidence that you're advocating and influencing at strategic level on behalf of the travelling public. So well done.
Thank you. It's been a good it's been a good period. I mean, ultimately, what we're really interested in is outcome.
Yeah.
So the conversations and the engagement is fantastic, and other people picking up the messages, but ultimately, it's what then feeds through from that, which I'm sure we'll come back to on the business plan discussion.
Great. Just to pause and see whether Alex or Susan, whether there's anything that you wanted to that we were last. On the show, but we don't need to put that in a minute. Anything you wanted to add? No, we good? Okay, good. Well, let's move on then. So Michael, you're working very hard today, as always. Let's quickly, should we check in? Is there anything on the monitor that you wanted to draw attention in before we get into what is our big item, which is our business plan?
There isn't really any particular steer or focus I wanted to suggest. As always, it's there to help prompt a conversation should members spot something that sparks their interest. I suppose the one thing that I would just update on, which I'm sure people are aware of, there's a reference in the extract from the Commissioner's report to the conversations between TfL and the RMT. And the fact that there have been strikes earlier on around a number of issues, not just pay, but also working hours. I mean, more recently, since these papers went out, I think, in fact, it's been reported that agreement has been reached on a 3-year pay deal. I use the phrase advisedly, the pay deal. It doesn't explicitly deal with one of the other areas that the RMT had brought to the table, which is around the length of the working week. But it would appear, if one believes the headlines, that for the time being, the risk of further strikes related to that issue has been averted.
Which is great news.
Which
is great news. And in other great news, I mean, I always find this a very helpful resource to bring to the board table. And I was happy to see this month, and it's not something we talk about a lot, but London's performance on air quality felt worth noting. It's been really such a difficult issue for the city for such a long time, and the performance of the transport sector is central to it. That felt like big news for London. And I was also, given our discussion last time, very struck by the data on bus performance. So the continuing challenge of growing bus patronage in a world where, even though reliability is on track with its targets, numbers are still not heading in the right direction. So there's some very interesting a story about buses, which is coming through from this material as well. Does anybody have anything on the monitor? Anything that really struck you? I saw Lara nodding on the air quality piece. That was nice to have some good news, wasn't it? It was good. Yeah. Yeah.
And seen it anywhere.
No, me neither.
Until I saw it in this document. So
yeah.
As always, a reminder that the the extracts from the Commission's report are TfL's best foot forward on all of these things. It's their version, and I'm not in any way suggesting that what's been said about that or anything else is untrue, but inevitably it is their version of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tricia, I've got one on that.
Eddie.
Yes, so it's about the Commission.
Yeah.
The Commission report itself, very positive, isn't it? Overall, lots of really great positives in this. And the negatives are hard to find, but they are in there in detail. And the one thing that really struck me was the number of call abandonments percentage. It's quite significant now. It's been 17% for the past 2 quarters, and that has increased quite a bit. Now 17% of 750,000 calls.
Big number.
Calls.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, what's lying behind that call abandonment? Why is it happening? And is there any exploration of AI or virtual assistants, which might not be the answer, but might support some of that huge call abandonment?
Susan, Susan, you got any thoughts on that? It is, you're right, it's a big number in absolute terms, isn't it?
So they have a recorded message. So if you get the information you need from that, so they'll abandon the call, and that's classed as call abandonment. So they've already got the information they need. That's one of the reasons that they're call abandoned, and a lot of people will ring whilst looking up the information at the same time, find the information and abandon the call. I do have a meeting this week for them, so I'm going to ask the question as well.
Great.
So yeah, I know that bit, but there may be something I don't know as well.
And the trend is it? I mean, that's really good understanding of why people abandon calls. It doesn't show why the number would change over time. So it's definitely worth asking the question. Thank you, Eddie.
I just had one.
Yes. Oh, so Rick, I left you Rick on there.
It was just, I suppose, the kind of the comment that we get lots of information about TfL from your section of monitor, but about the train companies as well. So we've got the table transport focus, but it's kind of
it's for the summer.
And it does show quite a variance between train companies serving London, including commuters. Journeys as well. So I just wonder whether there's anything we could do to make sure we keep our eye on that as well.
So the main way that we do that at the moment, apart from dealing with kind of if there's something from casework which either is very specific to an individual or there's a theme that's arising, apart from that, which is important, the other way that we do it is myself, and usually I go along with Alex, we will have a meeting probably every 6 months with the kind of major rail providers within our patch, both on the track side as well as the train side, and those conversations are one way or another usually about saying why is performance not as good as it should be. I mean, increasingly the conversation has been value for money, so not just the kind of service delivery, but also about the price that you pay for it, which of course is a difficult one for the operators themselves to do much about, given the constraints around the fare setting process, particularly for regulated fares, which of course are very important in our part of the world, given the strength of the commuting market. But we feel that it's important to kind of land that point, particularly, if the performance isn't improving dramatically, by which I mean sort of reliability, and at the same time, fares have increased and are due to increase in real terms, and that's probably going to be a pretty chunky number if unless the government makes a different decision in the next few weeks. That's not a great deal for the travelling public. So we use these conversations constantly to remind them of that. Just on the survey is moving into a new world. So it's going to be in terms of the sample size, going to be an expanded survey. It's going to be more collaborative with the industry. In fact, I think it might even be industry led increasingly. And it'll be called the Rail Customer Experience Survey. And I think the first iteration of that is due out this month, I think, from memory. So at the very least, we should have some updated results.
Yes, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. And then Priya, sorry, I didn't forget you on Stu.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, lots of positive stuff in the report, which is really, really good to see. And you have to like really fish in the haystack to find the stuff which we are obviously meant to hold them to account for. So also interesting was to note was the complaints. The volume of the percentage as a volume of total journeys has gone up. And they did explain a little bit around the Oyster related stuff, which was because of cyber security. But other things like contactless, London Underground went up by 14%. Buses also saw a 3% rise in complaints, despite lesser journeys. So it'd be quite interesting to understand what's driving higher complaints when things should actually be getting better year on year.
Yeah. Again, Susan, I think I could turn to you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, never actually look at an increase of people complaining as a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing because it means the organisation is more open to having complaints. And I think that a very strange thing happened with the cyber attack is that people contacted TfL for the first time and found how easy it was, and then decided that they would just carry on. That was another thing I was told that was arising from that. And there have been a lot of issues as well. On the tube, the Central Line, graffiti has been a huge cause of contact for TfL. Safety is a real big one as well. We see quite a lot now about passenger safety issues on buses as well as tubes. That's another thing that's really increased. And then it's following the cyber attack, even though it was a really long time ago now, it had a real knock-on effect on zip cards as well. That's children's zip cards and other concession cards such as the 60+. So that's driven complaints as well. And although as far as my last conversation with TfL, they have managed them, those complaints have driven other complaints. So if they haven't got to them quick enough, then that drives on another complaint. So that's increased some of their numbers as well. And we see it as well. People will come to us and say, well, I wrote to them on Monday and I haven't had a response. And we're trying to say, well, it's Wednesday, so we need to give them a bit of time. But so they would have written on Monday and then written again on Tuesday. We're seeing that more and more when we see the information they provide us. But I haven't had my most recent update from them yet. So there could be something else that I'm just not aware of at the moment.
I wonder whether Priya, I mean, it's a very interesting topic, and it might be a thing for us to schedule. I mean, we haven't really got time now, but whether we want to schedule a substantive broad discussion on the subject of the pattern of TfL's complaints and trends over time, because it is a good resource for us to. We have the official version of it in our pack, but something putting aside a bit of time to think about it, would that be of interest to board members?
Yeah, I think definitely.
Just having a bit of putting together a little bit of trend data, because and it's very difficult to pull apart. The people are complaining more because they think they're going to get heard versus people are complaining more because they think they're getting a worse service. This is really hard.
Yeah, but, also differentiating what's a repeat contact versus what's a unique complaint.
Yeah.
The other thing I forgot to mention is TfL have got to have a repeat have an uptick in contact from the increase in contactless payment on the railways. They have gone to TfL because that's what people see on their bank statements. It's not TfL you're supposed to go to, and that bit is really confusing. So we've got a live case about this at the moment. So the passenger is seeing TfL on their bank statement and saying to us, well, I haven't travelled with TfL. So we know that it's TfL who own the system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that said, when you touched it, it came up in your bank statement as transport something, it would be a lot easier to understand. But people can't understand it because it says TfL. But TfL is just the function that is being used, and that's caused a lot of a big uptick in their contact, particularly as they're pushing back and saying nothing to do with us. So you've got somebody coming back saying, of course it's got to do with you, it says TfL. So that's another issue.
Thank you, Susan. I think that's helpful. So Tricia, I think as part of that discussion on a deep dive on complaints and trends from this report, might be good to also see if TfL can share some sort of customer insight stuff they do internally. That helps us understand the root causes.
I wonder actually whether we might want to invite TfL to come and talk to us about this, come and talk to us about their complaints handling, about their insight. Because we have time. Yeah, should we do that?
Yeah,
I'm saying Sir Michael was there already. He was, yeah. So why don't we schedule a board discussion around TfL complaints and customer insight, and we'll ask TfL to come and talk to us.
Suitably primed in terms of saying what we're after.
Absolutely, we'll do
some trend data, some content to get our teeth into.
Excellent. That's a really good idea. Thank you very much, Priya. Great. Anything final thoughts for Michael? Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. We'll have to catch us up. But let's get on to what is probably our most substantive, definitely, in fact, our most substantive agenda item together today, which is our business plan for next year. So first week of December, Michael and I are heading to the Transport Committee to get Transport Committee approval for the work that we are planning to do in the next business year. And we have, we've talked about this a little bit, both around this table and informally with the committee already. So there should be no surprises coming from the discussion that we're just about to have. But before I hand over to Michael, just to kind of a few thoughts on how you can help in this conversation. So again, when we've discussed before, some of the issues that we've had as a board have been, does our plan have the right balance between continuity and change? So it's the third year of using these themes. Are we getting the right mix of keeping stuff going and having some new stuff? Are we building a plan which gives us enough space to respond to the way the world is over the next year, as well as do stuff which is proactive? And then overall, do you think in aggregate the things that we're planning to do in the organisation are realistic? Do you think this is you've been working with us for a while now? Do you think this is a deliverable set of activities? So I think those would be, if you could have those things in your head as we go through this agenda, I think that would be super helpful. Michael.
Thank you. Well, I think you've said it.
Oh, sorry.
You've got some great exam questions, and I'm conscious that I did sort of indicate some background by email to board members before the meeting, and just by way of reminder, the sort of things that I thought would be worth us bearing in mind in the conversation about whether you think this draft is close to ready for submission to the Transport Committee. I think the themes I was highlighting was one is what we're saying around our impact, just picking up a little bit what Eddie said earlier, and what Susan, I think in particular, challenged us on at the last meeting. Does it feel like we're getting that right, both sort of retrospective in terms of what we've achieved in the year to date, where I think actually we've got quite a strong story to tell, but also looking forward in trying to explaining how it is that we achieve things through the mix of activities that I set out at the beginning of the section on the work programme for next year. So it's a story on impact, right? We were challenged to sharpen our act in terms of describing what we're going to do under themes 1, 2 and 3. Does that feel like we've done the job now? And we have, not just with those 3, but across the 6 themes, we have sought just to draw our neck in a little bit and not try and be over ambitious. So I think I mentioned in the email before today's meeting that there are ideas for other things that we could do, or things that we could do in a different way, and we have put those to one side, not because the ideas weren't good, but just in the interest of trying to make sure that what we're committing to is manageable. Does that feel like we've ended up with the right outcome to board members? And then just a quick reference, final reference to the fact that the document, which follows the same format as in recent years, and is, I think, what the committee needs, the Transport Committee needs for its purposes. The document is not just about describing reports we're going to do or engagement we're going to do on particular topics. It's also a reference to what we're looking for in terms of our budget, in terms of the grant from the Assembly. The story is a very familiar one to the one that we've used in previous years. We're essentially looking for the same level of grant plus a provision for a as yet unknown element to cover the pay award that is made every year for GLA staff, and which is replicated here, and is a principle which has been supported up to now by the GLA. So it's the budget bit is simple in many respects, but we do flag that there are one or two issues which are particular to next year. For example, the fact that the lease on our office comes to an end, and we will need to reach a decision about what comes in place of that. I wouldn't describe it necessarily as a risk, but it is a factor which, when eventually we know the outcome of that, may affect our financial standing. So impact, manageability of programme, budget, does it feel like we're saying the right things?
Perfect. Thank you. And Sonia, definitely, I saw your hand in the greatest hits articulation in the front tab, so it's very nice. I think it's a really good, positive account of what we've done already in this business year. So thank you for that as well. All right, colleagues, is this what you were expecting? Is it the right kind of pitch for the committee? Really welcome your thoughts.
I'll kick off.
Please.
I wrote loads of notes on the business plan, and then looking at them this morning, I realised they were all just like ticks saying, yes, this is good.
Okay.
So, right.
Would you like another coffee?
Have an orange.
I thought it was a really good one. I guess it's I think we've discussed before, having space within it to kind of like to respond to events. Yeah. But it looks like it's a flexible enough plan, so I think that's fine. And I guess kind of the big rail reform stuff you're not going to see necessary changes in the coming year. So it's sort of holding steady, and then we might see in a year, 2 years time, starting that process of change starting to lead to different outcomes, different performance on the railway as well.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's good to me.
I mean, over the last 3 years, I think we're getting better at planning kind of our commitments for the year ahead. Surprise, surprise, when the year eventually ends, you look back and it's not as you planned it, because things just turn out differently. And you know, we're a market taker, not a market maker, when it comes to what are the issues that are arising, how do we influence, etc., etc. And I think I have become more relaxed that is how life is, and one should not over agonize about, let's have a plan and make sure it's absolutely delivered as intended at the end of the year. But we do need something which at least sets out some direction of travel with some sort of substance. And thank you for your
only one that I was sort of had kind of it's not criticism at all, but it's just interesting. It was around theme 4 and the conversation we were just having earlier as well around kind of TfL's metric on caring about its customers and how that drives or not performance of TfL generally. It'd be quite interesting to kind of maybe have more of a board discussion on that at some point.
Yeah. Good idea. Thank you. Other thoughts?
Comments?
Please, thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was
Really good report, really clear business plan. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for summarising the 16th as well. Just a couple of minor points, really. Under key achievements, do we really want to start with the first key achievement being around the funding agreements? Obviously, that's very significant, but would we not be better positioning ourselves to start with something that was unique to London TravelWatch over the past year as an achievement?
happy to do that, by the way.
Yeah.
The second thing is about the number of contact and appeals around casework within the first 6 months. Has that increased against the same period last month? If it has increased, could we include that to show the impact of the casework without any additional capacity?
Actually, it has increased, but Yeah.
Susan, can you remember? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it has seen at the point at which the snapshot was taken. I don't think it had increased. I mean, as it happens, London TravelWatch appeals received has gone up in the last month or so, but I'm not sure it's materially greater, if at all, in those 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably it's a little bit, but I think it's our contact that may have gone up rather than our appeals. And that's just everything seems to be falling off, still off the back of the cyber attack at the moment.
Yeah.
Now that's falling off again. Because like Michael says, we have had a real uptick in it recently, but not in that period, not in that snapshot.
Okay. Like one
other point is about the lease. This is a business plan, so unless you've had the heads up about the negotiation for a new lease, any lease I've negotiated has always led to an increase in price. So perhaps we shouldn't be suggesting that there won't be an increase for the business plan in relation to the budget, just a thought.
and the last thing is.
The last thing was really to ask a little bit more about the proposal around research on race and faith-based crime, hate crime on transport. What's that going to look like, do you think, and how long is it going to be?
So just on the lease, last time we negotiated, we actually got a reduction. So it's a matter of public record. Sometimes you can get a good result. Let's see. I certainly I wouldn't want to assume that it's going to be greater, but obviously there are risks that it could be.
And I think it's important to be clear that also there's no absolute presumption about what the location of the team is going to be. We have at this point in our life, we have many options about where we're located. So I think at the minute there's no presumption about choice. If the cost is too high for us to be able to afford it, we'll go somewhere else.
But the conversation will need to start soon because we're basically a year out now. This will start in earnest pretty much now.
And then on the race and faith idea, I mean, it's something we've talked about a lot.
So I think the rationale for it possibly being something that needs to be done is that as London TravelWatch, I think this is before my arrival, the organisation kind of particularly got into the personal security debate around on the back of violence against women and girls, not exclusively, but I think that was the context was Sarah Everard, etc., before my arrival, and I think the research that we did back in 2022, particularly shone a light on kind of the experience of women when it came to personal security. We then followed up with a report very specifically on LGBTQ+. What we hadn't done was a research report which very specifically shone a light on hate crimes that affected those people who had been the victims of race and faith crime, and it felt like the affected communities felt like important communities. Their experience felt like an experience that was worth understanding to inform policymakers' provision of responses to hate crime of that sort. The reason, I mean, we could do that. One of the reasons we didn't prioritise it last year after the summit that we held jointly with Transport for London was a sense. Well, there were two reasons. One was a sense that I think one of the strands of the conversation from that event was there's been a lot of research. Generically, there's been a lot of research. What is needed is that action. So that was one point. And secondly, one of the issues that was particularly surfaced in the conversations on that day was the need for the reporting journey to be far more supportive of those people who unfortunately have to deal with the consequences. So we focus very particularly on that rather than let's do some more research and let's do the research. And however, it still begs the question, whether there is enough understanding of what people with lived experience have gone through when it comes to race and faith-based hate crime. So we think that there is still a need for that. But our approach now is, given everything we need to do, given the fact that there is now the task force in place, which brings together all of the key players, is let's use our membership of that to promote the industry. I use that in the wider sense of the word, the industry to develop the evidence base that then can be used to inform the right approach. The risk in that is that we are relying upon other people to do something just because we advocate strongly for it, and we can't guarantee that that will happen. But it just feels like a more resource-effective way of getting to the same outcome, which is, do we understand enough about how people who are subject to those particular hate crimes experience that? Just feels like a better way of getting to that result. Does that help?
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, you know, in the current climate of what's happening around us, personal security topic does seem quite pertinent.
Absolutely,
Super.
we totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, super pertinent.
Sarah.
Firstly, I wanted to say that I really thought that the description on page 4 about the work programme, your sort of theory of change, was a really, really great, succinct description of what we do and how we do it.
Right.
And I really liked it, and I think we could potentially use it in other avenues as a piece of comms, just in terms of, you know, how do we describe what we do in quite a nice sort of succinct way. So it's really, really good. And then my question was just about the theme 1, more seamless journeys. Obviously, that's an area we've struggled with since I've been on the board. And I think the two second paragraphs, the ones about the priorities for streets, I think building on the making space work is really positive, and it's great to actually have a steer now for what we should be focusing on. I also think in terms of the interchange between modes at key public transport hubs, I think that's a really interesting piece of work. And I think also potentially there might be broader lessons that you can draw from that work, which could be applied not just to those key transport hubs, but to other transport hubs more generally. My question relates to the first one about improving 2 aspects of seamless travel. It still seems relatively vague. I didn't know if there was work that there was really thinking that sat underneath that, so you already had an idea of what those areas were, or whether or not working that up and then advocating for that all in one business unit is something that could be achieved.
So to if I understood you correctly, the 2 aspects of seamless travel we're going to do are the 3 top priorities from the research and the interchange.
So it's those drafting, yeah.
So
It's a drafting.
It's a drafting thing, yeah. We clarify that.
Those are the 2.
Yeah.
Are we doing 2 and then we're doing
Those are the 2.
But thank you for.
But sorry, it's not clear. And thank you for your comment about theory of change. I mean, this will be for a discussion when we get to our internal review in next year. But I think one of the interesting things is having sought to describe in a way which feels like it resonates the sorts of things we do and how they have an impact. Then start to think about, but which of those actually gets the bigger bang for the buck? You know, is screaming, you know, through headlines in the media the most effective way of getting things done, resource efficient way of getting things done, as opposed to responding to 60 odd consultations in 6 months. And that will be, I think, where the interesting conversation remains to be had internally about thinking about, okay, how do we achieve even more impact next time? Do we do more of one and less of another, as well as maybe doing these things in different ways?
It's such a big question, though. It's not just a London TravelWatch question. It's the kind of how to move the dial on public service delivery and public policy. I think we could spend a lot of time talking about that. Yeah. It's huge. Yeah. Thank you. So there's some really helpful comments on the document, and which we can certainly tighten up in 1 or 2 places. But what I'm hearing from colleagues is that you're comfortable with the content and the approach and the way in which the track record of achievement and the theory of change is described. So I think, Michael, that that's all we need in terms of the session for the committee. And many thanks for the patience as we sort of gradually built this over a number of different conversations, and to heads of section for making sure that your own notes are well crafted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Right. Good work. That takes us on then to our the next stage in our meeting, which is our regular updates from our heads of section. And the first one today, I think, is Alex. And apologies, we didn't quite manage to get the version of the document without the comments into the pack. We'll try and get a clean one in next time, but thank you, Alex.
Oh, I missed that. Is that what I did? Oh, no.
It's all right, Alex. It was something that there was nothing, I think, that was in any way problematic.
Here, what have we got?
Yeah, surely not this. Don't tell them that.
Yeah, don't tell them.
Don't tell them that. There was none of that. But yeah, we will try and make sure we get a clean copy in.
The ones on the website.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
I don't think it's actually really prompt because that's one of the things I was going to mention. So yeah, just a couple things taking the paper is read, just kind of since it was drafted. Which are very thrilling to last Wednesday, the DFT published their accessibility roadmap, which lots of interesting stuff in there. So one is welcome points. So they are after the trial of that, which had fairly promising results. They've announced that they will be rolling that out on a wider basis, but we don't have the details of how many and exactly where, but that is something they are working out. And for context, that's something that came out with the ticket office consultations. So hopefully that is something that we need in making travel a bit easier for people.
And it really just saying we're going to do a bit more of this without saying where, when.
I think they're still working that out, but yes, they don't yet.
Okay.
Well, they might have the numbers, but they haven't shared them.
Okay.
And then more widely looking at the accessibility roadmap, so going through that and how it maybe impacts work. I think there are definitely some areas that overlap or present opportunities for stuff that we're already doing. So particularly there's a bit in there around reforming the access for all programs, so free access to stations, which is something we are looking at. And then also, for example, lift reliability. They're specifically talking about on the national rail network. We're kind of looking at more on the TfL, but obviously there'll be kind of overlap potentially shared learnings. So yeah, just going through that and thinking where there are opportunities, and also speaking to transport focus as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions for Alex? I have one or two, but I wondered. I mean, I'll kick us off then. The walking and wheeling research. Can you get say a bit more about how you think that landed? What do you think? What impact it might have had? Because it's such an important foundation for our work next year. So what's your reflections on it as a piece of work?
Yeah, I think it's gone quite well. Obviously, it's kind of the first phase, and I think it's been very useful internally to kind of help us both shape our thoughts, but also, I guess, just confirm or evidence kind of things that we've already been saying. We've used it, been able to use it already in the transport committee session, for example, on mobility of London streets, which I think they'll be having an output on fairly soon. So it will be useful in that, we'll see there. And then also we used it in just sort of more BAU consultation responses and things like that, and kind of just pushing those points in again, just useful to have an evidence base. So it's not just we think this, it's like we know this from what people have said. And I think in conversations just with some stakeholders, I think they've been fairly positive about it. And I think again, particularly some of the more grassroots organisations that maybe don't have the resources to kind of do some of this work, I think they've also kind of shared reflections that it's useful for them as well to be able to kind of point towards this to make the case, for example, addressing uneven pavements or things like that. So I think it's been pretty positive. Obviously, I think there's room to grow and build on it, particularly kind of get a bit more nuance behind everything that's in there. And I guess also thinking about going forward, this is something for next year, but what our sort of USP is within this. Because there are quite a few organisations working in this kind of, where is the value that we specifically can add? Yeah,
and I guess what's our change agenda? I agree, it's foundationally really helpful.
Yeah.
But I think next year it'll be, so what is it we're actually, how do we want the world to be different?
Yeah, I think on the foundation point, the thing that kind of really struck me in a way that I don't think struck me before was the result, the insight from the question about, if the mayor had £100 to spend on transport, how should he prioritise it? And the top three priorities in order were tube, buses, and streets.
Yeah.
But within touching distance of each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't like tube, bus, streets.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really right up there.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's only indicative of something. It's not very scientific, but just as an indication of the kind of strength of priority that people feel this should be given financially
Yeah.
was a revelation to me. And what's interesting is that TfL, when it comes to streets, of course, local authorities are where where all the big action, where all the substantive action happens. TfL's budget on streets is small as part of its £10 billion annual spend. But it does seem to suggest there's something that's worth pushing here. And obviously what we need to do is not just say, spend some more money on it. It needs to be more intelligent, which is, I think, what the next phase of research is intended to inform. But the strength of priority was the thing that really stood out for me.
It is interesting because if you think of the anecdotes are like, they're always risky to bring anecdotes around the table, but when people's narrative around things that mess up their daily journeys, you don't always hear, you don't hear people talking about streets as much as you do about what's going wrong with the tube, what's going with. So that is I think you're right, the closeness of those three things is an interesting.
Anyone who's
oh yes,
come here to the office today, you experience that street environment. A pavement that you're going to turn your ankle over on because it's like that, and it's got a tree root like this. Whatever is a microcosm of exactly what this is touched on.
Thank you. Anything else for Alex? Thank you very much, Alex. Sorry, I was trying to see, so just sitting in my eye line.
No, thank you. Thank you for a really good report, Alex. I just wanted to make a point on accessibility. And so TfL have made a commitment on the 66% customer care overall. I think it goes back to your point a little bit about the personas-based thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if we also advocate for some kind of commitment to say they want to make this better by this percentage or have this kind of result from the disabled customer community, because this is a really important point. And I don't know how we measure it.
It's a good challenge. I think they do have a specific metric for disabled people, but it's a good challenge. Do we kind of want to push on that? And it's also kind of looking at the drivers behind that. What are the sort of key things that are either improving it or making it worse? I think that's a big challenge.
So as part of the customer care research, they explicitly asked disabled people the same question as they'd ask of all Londoners, and they track it. I don't think they have a target, but over time, the response is less positive than all Londoners, as you probably would expect. But over time, the gap has narrowed, and I'm sure TfL would say that's because lots of good things have been happening. But I don't think they express it as a target. Within the mail transport strategy, there are two outcomes that they are seeking to promote, which aren't about the score. But one is around the provision of step-free access tube stations. So the target had been to achieve a third step-free by 2030, which they have hit. But the target now has been increased to a half of all tube stations step-free by 2030, which looks pretty challenging. And the other explicit outcome is around reducing the additional time it takes for disabled people to make a journey on the public transport network. So there is a you can call it a time premium or a time differential. So for an able-bodied person, the average time is X. For a disabled person, it's Y. And there is a target to reduce that differential by 50%, I think it is, by a certain point in time. So those are the two bits of targetry: number of tube-free step-free access stations and reduced time differential that they have within the strategy. And they monitor disabled customer perception, but I don't think they have a target. But maybe when we see the commissioner talking about how far are those things driving the right right actions, is a conversation worth having.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and we could think about framing it as being, what would it take for the trust that disabled people have in the TfL to be no worse than the trust that the average TfL customer has. And I think that would be a really, I think that the fact the gap is closing is positive, but the gap is still there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what would it take to close that gap would be a really good question.
And the fact that 1 in 3 able people feel not care about.
Yeah.
So what about the disabled population?
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Sonia, onto the comms report.
Yep, I think I can whiz through this quite quickly. I'll just pick up on a few things. Media coverage has been generally positive. We've had various statements picked up by the usual high profile publications, which is always good to see. So that's ongoing as always. On the website, I've noticed our blog posts are doing really well, which is really good. I think Trevor's Bakerloo line, since I've written this report, I think we're about to hit 1,000 views on that. So that's really positive.
Very good.
As well. So we want to keep them coming. I'm also aware that some members of the board have put forward ideas for blog posts, so I will be in touch about that. I haven't forgotten you, I promise. We've just had a few other kind of timely things come up that we've needed to post. We
Lara says she's really urgent.
You're not going to escape today.
Yeah, don't worry, we will be in touch. Also on the website, we've launched our Christmas travel page, which also does really well. We've already had quite a lot of engagement on that page. I think we rank really highly on Google when people search for things, so that's all, it all helps, so all good. On the website feedback, we're still getting a lot of comments on that. This is just my own observation, but I'm starting to see more complaints around tube reliability or lack of reliability. So I'll obviously continue to keep an eye on that. And I'm thinking once we've got a year's worth of data, I'll dig into that a little bit more, and maybe some point next year I'll give you a little bit more on what we're seeing on there. Just a couple of quick things that aren't in the papers because they've happened more recently or for various reasons. On the podcast, we've recorded our 3rd episode with Shu and Hayward around personal security. We were due to launch it last Monday, but due to the incident on the LNER train, I thought that'd be pretty poor timing. So we're holding off on that for the time being, but it's done, it's edited, it's ready to go. In the meantime, we're recording a podcast this week with our casework team, which will be really nice. So then we'll have 2 kind of ready to go, so we can hold on to the personal security one if we feel we need to wait a little bit longer to publish that. But in case anyone was waiting for the next episode, I'm sure you all are. They are there, so watch this space. We've got some Christmas content coming up, so Luke's been putting together a quiz to run throughout December, and we'll have a review of the year as well, so please do share as you always do, which is always very welcome. And finally, internal comms, which we did mention earlier, we will be looking at launching a very small intranet for staff probably in the new year, so keep you up to date with that as well.
Thank you.
No worries.
Lots of great stuff there. Lara?
Sorry, it's not necessarily about your report, which was great. It's just the headlines about the Northern Line just kind of reminded me of that. I didn't know whether or not we knew anything more about. Oh,
yes, it's my line. Yeah,
Susan's line, yeah.
that was hopeful.
About what happened, why it happened, and just thinking about our pain points work. Is that
Yeah.
one-off, or is this a potential future issue that we?
I don't know who wants to pick this up, personal experience, company.
We
Pain
want
points?
to
think, yes.
more detail about what's happening. Yeah, but it sounds like this particular instance was maybe a one-off, although I'm not entirely sure if that exactly what happened. But I think it does raise a question more generally. If it's increasingly happening, it's interesting you mentioned on the website we're getting things around the tube, and I know it's the Metropolitan line there, that was the population there.
Yeah.
Piccadilly line as well, similar. So I guess it's individually there might be one-offs, but it kind of cumulatively.
And I'm just praying to this conversation, Trevor's, I know you've all read it, Trevor, excellent Bakerloo Line blog, which is a really brilliant kind of antidote to any assumption that when there's reliability problems, it's all about infrastructure. I think it's a really balanced and well researched piece. So it'd be interesting to see what's actually going on. Thank you. I think we should, yes, Eddie.
I can just.
They're all the articles and three source members was excellent. Sonia flowed really well. And thanks for doing support on that as well.
No worries. Well, thank you for getting involved.
Thank you. And nice photo as well. Thank you very much. Okay. Well done, Sonia. Susan. It's work.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the new and improved version of the casework report. It's been a long time coming. I had so much fun doing this. Probably shouldn't say that it was fun, but I really, really enjoyed.
You can.
I enjoyed. I felt very revitalised when I drafted this, and it has already gone to the PCG jobs focus. That was last week.
Yes.
Yeah, it was last
Passenger
week.
contact.
Yes, passenger contact transport focus. And it seemed to be quite well received there as well. Obviously, I've taken as read. There is two questions for board members. So the first question is, when I look at the survey responses we get from passengers, we have people who say that they didn't know that what our limitations was. And we do tell people in a very general document, my caseworkers will tell them at the very first time they reach out to somebody, but we do get this feedback and it comes through constantly. I have to say that it's always from people we can't help. I've never seen it from somebody we've got a really good outcome for. I don't know whether we should add an additional, we should just accept the fact that people are going to say this if they're not happy, or whether we should do something else to tell people what our limitations are at the outset. So I'd be quite interested in members' views about that. And then the second one, seeing that this is the new and improved style of casework, is there anything that I've missed? Is there something you really don't think you need to see and not that interested in seeing, and I could remove it? So yeah, I'd be quite interested in feedback so I can keep adapting this until we get to a place that where everybody's really happy with.
Great. Thank you very much, Susan. I've got it. Can I kick off? Sorry, there was one thing that I wanted to kind of get to really quickly. And I know there's a lot to get onto in terms of the what it says in the report and the kind of issue that we're getting appeals on. But I was really struck by the way in which you've expressed the way in which the team is getting treated by some of the customers. And I wondered if you could say any more about that. So, and that may be linked to your point around managing expectations, but the kind of abusive and challenging behaviour is clearly something which is really bad news and very unfair on the team that's just trying very hard to get a good deal. So can you say a little bit more about that and about what might be done to be help with that?
So there is a difference. So somebody who's angry or frustrated at the situation, when we speak to them on the phone, it's very clear that they're angry and frustrated at the situation. So they may be shouty, but they're not shouty at, they're shouty about, which is completely different. And we're obviously very empathetic to that. Abusive and challenging behaviour. We do have people who come to us who have other issues, shall we say, that who already challenged in their own life. And then they come to us and it can, reduce in name calling if we can't help them, or even more kind of personal attacks. So we are doing some conflict management training with the casework team and other staff members who are jumping onto that opportunity. And I think that's on the 3rd of December. And then we'll also look to record the calls as well. At the moment we use mobiles, and there is a way of doing it through the laptop. We used to do it, but it kind of fell apart and we couldn't hear people and they couldn't hear us, so that kind of just made everything so much worse. So yeah, I mean, we did have a complaint that was escalated to Michael, and if that call had been recorded, it would have stopped at Michael, and who would have said, we don't tolerate this. But because we didn't have that evidence, we had to continue with that process, that very long-winded process as well. So it is difficult. We have people who have got difficulties who contact us quite a lot. I speak to a couple of them on a regular basis, and they are very shouty, but they're not shouty at us. And there is a big difference, and it's knowing that difference and being able to be very empathetic. Abuse is, it could come in writing as well. If it's in writing, it's a bit easier because I can then go in and say, we don't tolerate this, we are not corresponding any further, and that is the end of it. Then if they want to be more abusive, they will come back to me and just don't respond. It's not a lot, I have to say, but you always remember the worst ones for some reason. I don't know what it is with human beings that we always remember the bad stuff. If you look at reviews on TripAdvisor, people always look at the bad stuff first before they look at the good stuff. So it's the same.
And I recognise the world you're describing, and people will have strong feelings about their experiences, and they will feel aggrieved with the service provider. But I think, you know, our team have the right to be treated with courtesy.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we would all support anything that needs to be done to make sure that they can turn up to work and do their jobs without being bullied or harassed.
Do we block some numbers if they're repeat people who?
Yeah, we have blocked people. I think I've done one in the past 3 years. It's something I'm very hesitant to do. A lot of the people who are abusive have other needs. So we try to be as empathetic as we can and understand that, you know, it's a whole lot more difficult them living their world than it is for us living in ours.
Yeah.
But obviously we get to a point where we just can't do it anymore. And it's funny how some people will just disappear and then suddenly come back with a vengeance a few months later without any really kind of reason for that. So yeah, it's not a decision we take lightly.
Thank you. And then just one more for me, and then I will throw it open, I promise. I just wonder whether you could say any more on the technical fix on the 35 working days, because clearly there'd been a bit of there'd been a trend of the number of cases closing going down, but you've worked out what's going on now. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, it was just so I couldn't understand. We've kind of gone up and down with the 35 working days. Our closing case since I've worked here, but it's never been so consistently on a downward trend before, and I just couldn't work out. I know what my team are doing. I watched their work, and I'm thinking this isn't right. So anyway, I just kept studying cases over and over again, the same cases. I kept watching them, and what was happening was the Found Ever team sent out our surveys, and they don't have to reactivate a case to send it, but they'd forgotten that, so they were busy reactivating it. And when I was running reports, I was getting the time that they closed it rather than my caseworkers had closed it, and it's always at least a month later.
Right.
So yeah, so suddenly we've got this really big jump up from 60-something% back up to I think just under 80, and it was just reporting. It was just reporting, and there's no way I would have known just by looking at numbers that the Found Ever team were reactivating our cases.
And you think they started doing that sort of in 24-25, so from the point at which Found Ever picked up the contract?
Yes.
Okay, so it's you can date, sorry, I'm maybe labouring this slightly, but you can date the change from when the Found Ever hand over took. Okay, great. Thank you.
From when we started activating the surveys again, and also for a while they weren't reactivating them and they just forgot. So it's so what we've done is, rather than rely on them remembering, we've changed the CRM system very slightly, so it doesn't matter what anyone does now. I will still pick up the date it was closed by the caseworker.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Sorry for hogging the conversation so far. Open it up to others. Eddie, thank you.
I thought it was really great sport. I love the new style. Well done, Matt. Brilliant. One of the questions we're asking is about whether an additional notification should be included around limitation. What would that look like, and where would it sit in the process? I'm just trying to factor in, why is the pie chart asking if people were explaining the limitations to them? Roughly 1/8 of them are saying no. Is there a way you can get that 100% to everybody, but at the first point of contact somewhere they're informed about the limitations?
So what the process is somebody comes into us, Found Ever will get all the information, and then as they transfer it, they say, we're now going to transfer you to a caseworker to pick up this. This is a what to expect. Please read the what to expect document, and in there it says what we can do, what we can't do, timescales, that sort of thing. So that's one of the first times they'll hear it, and then the caseworker will write and say, hi, I'm Mags, I will be your caseworker, you've written to us about this is what we're going to do, we just need to manage your expectations and let you know. And And then at the very last stage, when we're writing back and saying, "Baby, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We have, this is why. So we told you here, we told you then, and we're now saying again, these are the reasons why we haven't been able to get you the outcome you're looking for." And so people where we haven't got the outcome will quite often say we didn't tell them. In some of the cases, I know who they are, so I will go and look at the case and I can see that it's there about 3 times that we've told them what our limitations are. We've also linked into our website, say, look here, there's more information. So it's a tricky one. I mean, I think we do have an auto response that we send out. So as soon as somebody writes to us, they get an auto response to say we've got it. I think that there may be something, we may have to put something on there. But
so is that what the extras, because listening to you talk, you could think that the answer to Eddie's question is, well, we're already telling people
we are
at every stage in the process, but what would an extra, so the extra layer that you're suggesting would be what?
Would be either at that point, at the automated response, or Found Ever, I would add it to the templates that Found Ever use to send out.
Right.
That will have a line about our limitations. So, you know, or it could be both. I mean, there's stopping us doing both. But it's just...
I'd be interested in Priya's thinking on this. What do you reckon, Priya?
Thank you. I wonder if there is an opportunity with Transport Focus. I know budget might be a constraint, but like a little user research and behavioral science, nudge theory, to understand a little bit around what kind of language would resonate and make people understand this point, because clearly we're saying it, but they're not getting it. So a bit of a user research focus group, I don't know, if we could do that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. Just have to say again, I've never had somebody say it to me when we've had, or say it in the survey or through the caseworker when we've had a good outcome. It's always when we can't help somebody.
Yeah, so it's helping to understand from that audience, how can we communicate this such that you comprehend this is the best we can do.
I can hardly believe I'm going to say this, but I mean, in other organizations, I'm seeing AI used to do this, to ask that question. So people are putting their scripts through AI to say, will this land? Is that something we use a...
You mean the A/B testing, but using AI?
Yeah.
I think we could try that.
Yeah.
That could be relatively cheap as well.
Yeah.
Happy to work with you offline if we can come up with like 2.
Have
a conversation.
That's fine. I just wonder how I think you need to try it to be able to see, but remember that our responses are about, we have a very good response rate for our surveys. They're about 20%, which is, it sounds low, but it's actually really good. I wonder how much more we would get. And maybe we should change the question as well.
I mean, just reflecting on Eddie's points and Priya's points and I mean, I wonder whether the mood in the room, and maybe I'm like making this up rather than really hearing it, but see how it lands, is actually we're telling people 3 times what the ground rules are. If people aren't hearing it 3 times, what's the confidence telling them a 4th time will make any difference? And is actually what's going on here, not that people don't have an opportunity to understand, but they probably don't like it. And so there's I'm not getting from the conversation so far that this is going to solve the problem that we're setting out to solve. But do have, I think, the conversation offline with Priya about testing out what messages people really hear.
Yeah,
sounds like a really good offer. Yeah,
and then you know that this is not going to work. Then
what do you think?
I was just going to say, I mean, there are risks by emphasising the limitations. That it sounds like you're not necessarily doing your best for the person who's ringing up as well, which is not the case. But that it might come across to people like that.
That's a really good point. That's really interesting. We do, for some people, linking back to the abusive behaviour, when I can tell that I think somebody's going to kick off, it's usually around revenue protection, and it's often a parent writing for their child. We will go back and say, you must confirm you understand our limitations before we'll go any further. So then we don't get that pile of comeback of you're useless, you've done this, that sort of thing. But the caseworker has to read, and it's really unpleasant for them. That stops that in its tracks.
Maybe that's the clue. Maybe you have a tick this box if you understand our terms and conditions before you proceed.
I know exactly where I could put that as well. That's quite interesting.
That's slightly rude, but I'll go with it.
All right, I'm going to stop this here. Because, but have a conversation with Priya about how to test out what might work. But
Yeah.
I think thinking about you do know what's going on, don't you? Question is a good one. On the substance of the report, Eddie, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, this is like a use.
You, Susan, whenever times are tough in the casework team, just pull out Anthony's quote and pass it around the team. Very constructive, glowing feedback of the work that the casework team does. And I know at times it must be very stressful and difficult, but it's a fantastic piece of feedback. Possibly some choice quotes there, the annual report.
Thank you, that's it.
Can I just come on? It's just one comment, which was around you noted about the increase from passengers concerned about obvious fare evasion. So it is one area where TfL seem quite defensive generally around the issue, and they probably focus on revenue protection rather than on the kind of social norms in society. And obviously this is something that people are concerned about, and you see that in the media, but also we're seeing it in our casework as well. And maybe that's something to keep an eye on and to push TfL on a bit more, maybe something for the conversation with Andy Lord as well.
Yeah, I think definitely that's it feels like a hot topic right now. Sarah.
Really think the report looks great, and it's really interesting to see the case studies, because we normally look at just the high level information, but actually see what an improvement looks like, what an improved outcome looks like. I was curious, what exactly, and it's not mentioned in this, but earlier on in the paper we talk about partial improvement versus an improved outcome. What is the difference?
So for a penalty fare, a passenger might want everything cancelled, and we might get it reduced so they have to pay for the ticket. So it's not what the passenger wants, but they are in a better place for having come to us.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody
I
else.
just had one.
Priya, go.
Thank you. Really good report. Thank you, Susan.
Right, thank you.
Love the colourful graphs, because visually it's quite quick to grasp what you're saying. And I like the narrative my place with it as well. So great, well done. Just a couple of points I noted. One was around one of the passenger feedback saying, I had reached my limit with TfL. They didn't do what they needed to do, but you did it. So I think that's the kind of thing we need to bring up with TfL during our engagement, either with the anti-law or customer team, to say, how do we hold them to account so that it stems the flow from things coming into you. The second was, another person had said the opposite, which is, I came to you, you did nothing, but I went to another advocacy group and they solved my problem. So I wondered, is there something in there we could have done better as a reflection on what did they do and were able to achieve that we couldn't? So that's something for reflection. And then my final point was, towards the end, could we also have a little section on lessons learned to say, as a result of what all we saw this quarter, here were the things we were able to change. Here were the things that we think we can change through advocacy and maybe intervention from Tricia and Michael. And here are the things that we think are just not within our gift to change. So those lessons learned would be quite useful to see in a summary.
Really good points. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really good. Yeah, I really like that. I think that would be fun, and what we might be able to change with support. Or what we can't change as a casework team, but what could be changed
through advocacy and what you could change just within your own gift.
Yeah. And I think learning also where somebody's saying I went somewhere else and they sort of understanding how that worked would be really part of that learning. Great.
Yeah, the Citizens Advice contacted me about that. They didn't get it changed. What they did do was stop they got involved in the prosecution. Their legal team helped with the prosecution, and we can't do that. So
yeah. And is it Citizens Advice? Is that the case study that they were talking about? There's not other examples of other organisations that people are going to.
There are. I mean, there are Citizens Advice. That is the only place. There isn't anywhere else they can go. I mean, somebody says they are going to court.
Yeah.
What can we do if we look at it?
We don't have suites of lawyers sitting next to us.
We have to be very. There's some things we know as well, but we can't say anything because if for any reason that doesn't positively impact the situation, then we would be held to account. So yeah, we don't say anything.
Okay, So look, I think we've even answered your 2 questions, Susan. So in terms of do we think another signposting of limitations? We think kind of maybe, but let's not assume it's going to solve the problem, and have a separate conversation offline with Priya about testing out approaches. But also it may just not be something that a 4th point on the process is going to add much to the first 3. And then I think I'm hearing from board members that the new format is much liked. The way in which the data is presented, the focus on performance, the insight, the verbatim quotes from users are all things that give us a real deep understanding of what it is that your team are doing. And then finally, I think let's go back to where I started, which is your team need, to be clear that they have 100% support, and that none of us are expecting them to take any unreasonable behaviour. So I think that's a really, really important message as well.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. All right, Shahid, welcome. We are uncharacteristically on time, so it's good to see you. So look, this is our finance item. I can't believe that we're halfway through the year. This is the 6-month point on our financial year. So Shahid, over to you to give us an update on how we're doing.
Thank you, Tricia. Morning, everyone. Yes, just as you said, the report covers the period to the end of September, so the 6-month point. During September,
can you just hang on 1 second? Can we turn the volume up slightly? So we can hear you, but we just can't hear you very much.
Yeah, is that better?
Say something again.
Say that again.
Is that any better?
Try again. No.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Well done. Yeah, thank you. Okay, go.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So this report covers the period for the 6 months up until the end of September. We undertook quite a detailed budget review in September, and we were able to kind of reassess where we think we're going to be for the remainder of the year. So as a result, the variance to date is kind of the actuals to date are pretty much in line with forecast. So I'll just run through the kind of variances where we think we're going to be at the end of the year. In terms of income, we're expecting sort of £12,000 income higher than what we originally budgeted. That was mainly to do with the pay award that was allocated to additional grants and aid for the year, and also the rent interest that we're now including in this annually. In terms of fixed pay costs, we're £20,000 higher than budget. £23,000 of this we've talked about previously. That was in regard to the pay awards that weren't originally forecast in there. Some additional costs with the return to work for maternity cover, and a correction to the pensions contributions. A new item which we picked up as part of the budget review is there's a £3,000 saving now on members' costs. I think previously we're expecting a uplift for a board member to a deputy chair. That'll be postponed for this year, so that's not expected to happen. In terms of fixed overheads, the net position there's no change. However, there was £4,000 additional costs identified against HR consultancy. They were offset against savings that we identified in IT support. On the variable overheads, we found total savings of £24,000. The two big hitting items there were £10,000 recruitment costs and £5,000 on training and development. So overall, kind of the savings that we found overall allowed us to sort of reassess our priorities against projects and the budget allocations. As a result, we allocate an additional £30,000 to better transport services. Additional 5,000 for more accessible, inclusive and secure transport, and we removed the previous allocation of £10,000 that we had for closer working with Transport Committee. In total, as a result of all that, there were net savings of £2,000 that were added back to reserves, which would leave us with a sort of closing forecast of just shy of £195,000 on the reserves. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Can I just start with Alex, really? I mean, I think obviously the big numbers here are the project. I mean, are you going to look us in the eye and be confident on what's going to happen over the next 6 months?
Yes, so the bulk of the money for the Project Plus hasn't been sent out yet, but projects are now out to tender at the moment and live, and on track to be delivered by the end of this financial year. So that's off the top of my head, I think about £115,000 of that. It's committing a few bits and pieces already been spent, and then the other bits that aren't out to tender. So there'll be a little bit of uncertainty on my hands, but yes, much more confident that it will be spent on this project.
Thank you. Other questions on the money? Michael, are you comfortable with where we are in terms of the overall level of the reserve and where that's headed for this year? It's going to go up a bit.
Yes, I mean yes. It's the straight answer, and as in the previous discussion around the business plan, what we have signalled is that whilst the reserve has increased steadily and materially over the last 2 or 3 years, we're not expecting to kind of make quite as much progress next year. Just being prudent, I think, recognising that there are upward pressures on costs. We're hoping that we will get a good deal on the lease, but you can't be absolutely certain. So I think just signalling that feels like the right thing to have done.
But if I've understood you rightly, Shane, I think what you're saying is there is a little bit of flex in what for the rest of this year. If something really unexpected came along, we have enough resource available for the rest of this year to be able to respond to it and still make some progress on building the reserve. I think that's what the headline is.
Yeah. There's still a little bit of flex in there.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, just one.
Ask one question about the unexpected cost of £13,000. Somebody's return to work. That seemed quite high for an unexpected cost. What was that?
Sorry. I didn't.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Shahid?
I can't hear it very well. I'm sorry. I didn't quite catch that.
So the £13,000 that was unexpected associated with a return to work felt high. So could we explain a bit more about that? I think was the question.
Yes, I think the forecast anticipated this individual coming back after maternity leave. Their plans have slightly changed in terms of they've took an extended sabbatical. There was a period of annual leave that needed to be paid in the year as well. Outstanding annual leave from the previous year. But those figures have been sort of confirmed as correct, and it's just that has worked its way through the system. That was the total number.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, well then, Shahid, thanks very much. Thanks for all your support as ever, and we'll note the latest budget update. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shahid.
All right, thank you, Shahid. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting. And I'm just going to give you one more chance. Is there anything else that you want to raise now? Then there's a moment. If not, thank you very much, and we'll close for now. Thanks very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.